The warning klaxons screamed through the cramped cockpit of the stellar drifter as Marcus Reed fought to keep his ship from spiraling into the moon's gravity well. Plasma fire had torn through his port engine, and the acrid smell of burning circuits filled his lungs with each labored breath. His left side felt like molten metal had been poured through his ribs, which, considering the plasma burn scoring his flight suit, wasn't far from the truth. "Come on, baby," he whispered to his ship, coaxing the failing thrusters with practiced desperation. Just a little further. The job had seemed straightforward enough: escort a medical supply shipment through the outer rim. What the client hadn't mentioned were the Corvan raiders who'd been tracking the cargo for weeks. Marcus had fought off worse odds before, but not while flying solo in a modified transport that was held together more by prayer than proper engineering. The moon's surface rushed up to meet him, a tapestry of crystalline formations and silver-leafed forests that would have been beautiful if he wasn't about to crater into it at terminal velocity. He managed to level out just enough to avoid a head-on collision, but the impact still sent shockwaves through every bone in his body. The stellar drifter skidded across the moonscape, carving a furrow through the metallic soil before finally coming to rest against a cluster of towering crystal spires. Marcus tried to move and immediately regretted it. Something was very wrong with his left arm, it hung at an angle that made his stomach lurch. His vision swam in and out of focus, and each breath sent lightning bolts of agony through his chest. The emergency beacon was blinking weakly somewhere behind him, but he couldn't summon the strength to turn around and activate it properly. This was it, then. After 15 years of running cargo through the galaxy's most dangerous sectors, he was going to die alone on some unnamed moon, probably picked clean by scavengers before anyone found his remains. The irony wasn't lost on him: he'd survived firefights, asteroid fields, and even a brief stint in a Zolonian prison, only to be done in by a routine milk run gone wrong. The cockpit hatch groaned and Marcus wondered if the ship was finally giving up its structural integrity. But then he heard something that made no sense: footsteps. Heavy, rhythmic steps that seemed to shake the ground with each impact. Hallucinations, he decided. Internal bleeding could cause all sorts of interesting neurological symptoms. The footsteps stopped just outside his ship. Marcus tried to call out, but only managed a weak croak. Then the entire cockpit hatch was being pried open with a screech of tortured metal, and Marcus found himself staring up at something that definitely couldn't be a hallucination. His imagination wasn't that creative. She was enormous, easily 8 feet tall, with skin that seemed to be carved from living sapphire. Crystalline formations sprouted from her shoulders and forearms like natural armor, and her hair fell in waves of deep indigo that seemed to catch and hold the light of the moon's twin suns. But it was her eyes that stopped his heart, literally, judging by the way his chest monitor flatlined for a moment, pools of liquid starlight that held an intelligence both ancient and impossibly gentle. "Well," she said, her voice carrying a melodic accent he couldn't place, "you certainly know how to make an entrance." Marcus tried to respond, but the words came out as more of a whimper. The pain was getting worse, which he hadn't thought possible. The woman, if that's what she was, leaned down and began examining him with practiced efficiency. Her touch was surprisingly gentle for someone who could probably crush his skull like an eggshell. "Multiple fractures, severe plasma burns, possible internal bleeding," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "And you're going into shock." Typical human, always trying to die in the most dramatic way possible. Despite the agony, Marcus found himself almost smiling. "Sorry to disappoint," he managed. Her luminous eyes met his, and something passed between them that he couldn't quite name. "Oh, you're not disappointing," she said softly. "Reckless, yes. Stubborn, certainly. But not disappointing." Before he could ask what she meant, she was lifting him from the wreckage with impossible ease. Being carried by someone who towered over him should have been emasculating, but Marcus found he was too grateful to be embarrassed. Her skin was warm against his cheek, and she smelled like rain on crystal, clean and sharp and somehow comforting. "What's your name?" she asked as she carried him away from the smoking remains of his ship. "Marcus," he whispered against her shoulder. "Marcus Reed." "I'm Zephyra," she replied. Try to stay conscious, Marcus Reed. I'd rather not have to explain to the Nexary Council why I'm harboring a dead human. Nexary. That explained her size and the crystalline features. They were one of the neutral species, known for their advanced technology and fierce independence. What one was doing alone on this backwater moon was a mystery, but Marcus was too busy trying not to pass out to pursue the question. Zephyra's dwelling turned out to be carved directly into one of the massive crystal formations that dotted the landscape. The interior was surprisingly cozy, with soft bioluminescent panels providing gentle illumination and furniture that seemed grown rather than built. She placed him carefully on what appeared to be a medical bed, though it adjusted to his body shape with an intelligence that made him nervous. "This is going to hurt," she warned, producing a device that looked like a cross between a scanner and a very large needle. "More than it already does?" Marcus asked weakly. She gave him a look that might have been sympathetic. "Much more. But the alternative is death, so try to think of it as character building." The bioresonance healing was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. It felt like his cells were being rebuilt from the inside out, each nerve ending screaming in protest before settling into a strange, tingling warmth. He might have screamed, probably did, judging by the concerned look on Zephyra's face, but the pain was so far beyond his normal experience that his mind simply edited it out. When he finally surfaced from the healing-induced delirium, he found himself tucked under covers that felt like liquid comfort. Zephyra sat nearby, monitoring readouts on a holographic display that showed what he assumed was his vital signs. "Better?" she asked without looking away from the display. Marcus took inventory. His arm moved properly, his breathing didn't feel like drowning, and the fire in his side had been reduced to a dull ache. "Much," he said, surprised by how normal his voice sounded. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Zephyra replied, finally turning those impossible eyes toward him. "The healing process takes several days to complete. You're not going anywhere for a while." Something in her tone made Marcus study her more carefully. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way, but there was a loneliness in her expression that spoke to something deep in his chest. He'd spent enough time alone in the void between stars to recognize a kindred spirit. "I'm guessing you don't get many visitors out here," he said. A shadow crossed her features. "I prefer solitude." "Most people who prefer solitude don't go out of their way to rescue crashed pilots." "Most crashed pilots aren't dying on my doorstep," she countered, but there was no heat in it. Marcus settled back against the impossibly comfortable pillows, studying the play of light across her crystalline features. There was a story there, something that had driven her to exile herself on this remote moon. But for now, he was content to simply exist in this strange sanctuary, tended by someone who had saved his life for reasons she probably couldn't fully explain herself. Outside, the twin suns were setting, painting the crystal formations in shades of gold and amber. Inside, Marcus found himself wondering if being shot down might have been the best thing that had ever happened to him. 3 days had passed since the crash, and Marcus was beginning to understand why Zephyra had chosen this remote sanctuary. The crystal formation surrounding her dwelling created a natural amphitheater that caught and amplified the sounds of the wind, turning the moon's atmosphere into a symphony of haunting melodies. It was the kind of place where someone could lose themselves completely, or find themselves, depending on what they were looking for. "You're healing faster than expected," Zephyra observed, running her scanner over his chest. The bioresonance readings painted patterns of light across her sapphire skin, making her look like a living constellation. "Most humans take at least a week to recover from injuries this severe." Marcus flexed his left arm experimentally. The movement was smooth, painless, better than it had been even before the crash. "Maybe I'm not most humans." She paused in her scanning, those liquid starlight eyes studying his face with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. "No," she said quietly, "I'm beginning to suspect you're not." The days had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. Zephyra would check his healing progress each morning, then busy herself with maintenance tasks around the dwelling while he rested. But he'd caught her watching him when she thought he wasn't looking, and the air between them had grown thick with unspoken possibilities. Tell me about the Nexery, Marcus said, settling back against the pillows. I've heard stories, but I'm guessing most of them are wrong. Zephyr's expression grew guarded. What kind of stories? That you're all warriors. That you bond for life with a single partner. That you can share thoughts and emotions through some kind of psychic connection. He paused, noting the way her crystalline features seemed to dim slightly. That you're ruled by a strict clan system that values tradition above individual choice. The stories are mostly accurate, she admitted, placing her scanner on a nearby table. Though they missed the nuances. Yes, we bond for life, but the connection is earned, not forced. It requires mutual consent and deep emotional compatibility. And if someone refuses? The question hung in the air between them like a charged particle. Zephyra was quiet for so long that Marcus thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of old pain. My clan arranged a bonding for me when I reached maturity. Vex Torin, son of our military leader. Strong, honorable, everything a Nexery female should want in a mate. She moved to the window, staring out at the crystal formations. But bonding isn't about what others think you should want. It's about finding someone whose soul resonates with yours. So you refused. I ran, she corrected, her voice barely above a whisper. The night before the ceremony, I stole a transport and fled to the outer rim. I've been hiding here for 3 cycles, waiting for them to give up the search. Marcus felt something twist in his chest at the loneliness in her voice. That's a long time to be alone. I thought I preferred it that way. She turned back to him, and the look in her eyes made his breath catch. I thought solitude was better than being bonded to someone who felt like a stranger. The weight of implication in her words was impossible to ignore. Marcus sat up carefully, his heart hammering against his ribs. Zephyra. I know it's impossible, she said quickly, as if reading his thoughts. Interspecies bonding has been attempted before, but never successfully. The neural pathways are too different, the emotional frequencies incompatible. And even if it were possible, I'm an exile. I have nothing to offer you. Marcus stood, surprised by how steady his legs felt. The bioresonance healing had worked miracles, but what he was feeling now had nothing to do with medical technology. You saved my life. You've cared for me, protected me, shown me more kindness in 3 days than I've experienced in years. How is that nothing? She backed away as he approached, but her retreat was blocked by the crystal wall. You don't understand. If my clan finds me, if they discover I've been harboring a human male, they'll see it as confirmation that I'm unfit for Nexery society. They'll drag me back to face judgment. Then we'll deal with that when it happens, Marcus said, reaching out to touch her face. Her skin was warm beneath his palm, and he could feel a faint vibration, like a tuning fork struck in harmony. But right now, in this moment, none of that matters. For a heartbeat, Zephyra leaned into his touch, her eyes closing. Then she pulled away, shaking her head. You're still recovering. Your judgment is compromised by the healing process. In a few days, when you're fully healed, you'll realize this is just gratitude, not. Not what? Marcus challenged, stepping closer. Not attraction. Not something deeper than either of us expected. The crystalline formations on her shoulders began to glow softly, a phenomenon Marcus had noticed happened when she was emotionally agitated. Marcus, please. You don't know what you're asking. I'm not asking for anything except honesty. Tell me you don't feel this connection between us. Tell me you haven't been watching me the way I've been watching you. Tell me you don't wonder what it would be like if we were different species, if the circumstances were different. Zephyr's composure cracked, and for a moment, he saw the woman beneath the warrior's mask, vulnerable, lonely, afraid to hope. I can't tell you that, she whispered. Because it would be a lie. Before Marcus could respond, the dwelling's proximity alarms began to chime. Zephyra's head snapped toward the entrance, her warrior instincts taking over. Someone's coming, she said, her voice sharp with tension. Multiple signatures, approaching fast. Marcus felt his heart sink. Your clan. Unknown. But on this moon, any visitors are bad news. She moved to a weapons locker, withdrawing what appeared to be a rifle made of living crystal. Stay here. Don't let them see you. Zephyra, wait. But she was already gone, disappearing through the entrance with fluid grace. Marcus could hear voices outside, speaking in the melodic language of the Nexary. The tone was urgent, concerned, and he caught Zephyra's name mentioned several times. After what felt like an eternity, Zephyra returned, followed by a younger Nexary female with pale blue skin and silver hair. The newcomer's eyes immediately found Marcus, and her expression shifted from concern to fascination. Sister, the younger Nexary said in accented standard, you didn't mention your patient was so interesting. Kestra, Zephyra replied, her voice carrying a warning. Marcus, this is my sister. Kestra, this is Marcus Reed. Kestra's eyes sparkled with mischief as she looked between them. Oh, this explains so much. The clan has been wondering why you've been so elusive, why you haven't answered any of our communications. Communications? Zephyra's voice was sharp. I've received no communications. Because you've been blocking them, Kestra said, pulling out a small device. Your dwelling's shielding has been set to maximum. Very thorough, very deliberate. Almost as if you were hiding something precious. Marcus watched the exchange with growing unease. The family resemblance between the sisters was clear, but where Zephyra was guarded and careful, Kestra radiated an energy that reminded him of barely contained lightning. Why are you here, Kestra? Zephyra asked. The clan has called off the search, Kestra said, her expression growing serious. Father has accepted that you won't return willingly. But Vex. She paused, glancing at Marcus. Vex has not been so understanding. He's convinced you're hiding something, and he's been granted permission to pursue you independently. Pursuing me where? Here, Kestra said simply. He tracked the energy signature of your transport. He'll arrive within the next 2 days, probably with a small escort. And sister, if he finds you with a human male. She didn't need to finish the sentence. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. Zephyra's entire future, her freedom, her life, all of it was at risk because of his presence. I should leave, he said quietly. My ship is destroyed, but I could signal for rescue, find another way off this moon. No, Zephyra said firmly. You're not fully healed. And even if you were, I won't have you running from my problems. These aren't just your problems anymore, Marcus replied. If this Vex finds me here, what happens to you? Kestra looked between them with growing understanding. Oh, this is much more complicated than I thought. Sister, please tell me you haven't done something irreversible. I haven't bonded with him, if that's what you're asking, Zephyra said, but there was something in her tone that made Marcus's pulse quicken. But I won't pretend there isn't a connection. A connection, Kestra repeated, her voice rising. Zephyra, do you have any idea what you're playing with? Interspecies bonding attempts have killed both participants. The neural feedback can cause permanent brain damage or worse. I know the risks, Zephyra said quietly. Do you? Kestra challenged. Because looking at you both right now, I don't think you're thinking clearly. The bioresonance healing creates empathic echoes. What you're feeling might just be a side effect of the medical treatment. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. Is that possible? Zephyra's expression grew pained. It's possible. The healing process does create temporary emotional bonds. But Marcus, what I feel for you isn't just medical resonance. It's deeper than that. How can you be sure? Kestra asked gently. Sister, I've seen you pine for freedom your entire life. Now you find a human who represents everything you've been denied: choice, adventure, independence. Are you certain you're not projecting your desires onto him? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus looked at Zephyra, seeing the doubt creeping into her liquid starlight eyes, and felt his heart breaking. Because Kestra was right about one thing, the timing was suspicious. Too convenient, too perfect. Maybe, he said quietly, we should find out. When this Vex arrives, I'll make it clear that I'm just a patient. Someone you rescued and healed, nothing more. Marcus. No, Kestra's right. We need to be sure what we're feeling is real, not just some biological side effect. He met Zephyra's eyes, seeing the pain there that matched his own. And if it is real, then we'll find a way to deal with whatever comes next. Zephyra nodded slowly, but Marcus could see the walls going back up around her heart. They had 2 days to figure out if what they felt was genuine or just a beautiful illusion created by alien medical technology. 2 days to decide if their connection was worth the risks they'd both have to take. Outside, the twin suns were setting again, painting the crystal formations in shades of gold and crimson. But inside the dwelling, the atmosphere had changed. The easy intimacy of the past few days had been replaced by uncertainty and doubt. Marcus looked at Zephyra, memorizing the way the light played across her features, wondering if he was about to lose something precious before he'd even had the chance to fully understand what it was. The morning of the second day arrived with an ominous crimson dawn that painted the crystal formations like drops of blood against the moonscape. Marcus had barely slept, his mind churning with doubts about everything he'd felt since the crash. Across the dwelling, Zephyra sat in meditation pose before the great window, her crystalline features reflecting the harsh light as she prepared for whatever confrontation awaited them. The distance between them felt like a chasm. Where before they had gravitated toward each other naturally, now they maintained careful space, both afraid to test whether their connection was real or merely an echo of alien medical technology. The uncertainty was worse than any physical pain Marcus had endured. The atmospheric readings show 3 ships approaching, Kestra announced, checking her scanner for the 5th time that hour. They'll be here within the next few minutes. Zephyra rose gracefully from her meditation, her warrior's composure settling over her like armor. Remember what we agreed, she said to Marcus without meeting his eyes. You're simply a patient I rescued. Nothing more. Marcus nodded, though the words felt like shards of glass in his throat. Understood. The sound of landing thrusters echoed off the crystal formations, followed by the heavy footsteps Marcus had come to associate with Nexari warriors. But these steps were different, more aggressive, purposeful, carrying the weight of authority and barely contained anger. The dwelling's entrance dilated, and 3 figures entered. The first was clearly the leader, a massive Nexari male with skin like polished obsidian and crystalline formations that jutted from his shoulders like dark spears. His presence filled the room with an oppressive energy that made Marcus's instincts scream danger. Behind him came 2 smaller warriors, their hands resting casually on their weapons. Zephyra, the dark-skinned Nexari said, his voice carrying the rumble of distant thunder. 3 cycles I have searched for you. 3 cycles of wondering what madness possessed you to flee from honor and duty. Vex, Zephyra replied, her voice steady despite the tension radiating from her body. I wasn't aware my personal choices required your approval. Vex's luminous eyes, a cold silver unlike Zephyra's warm starlight, swept the room and immediately locked onto Marcus. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees. And what is this? A human pilot who crashed nearby, Zephyra said calmly. I provided medical assistance, as the healer's code requires. How, charitable, Vex said, circling Marcus like a predator evaluating prey. Tell me, human, what brings you to this remote moon? Marcus forced himself to remain calm under that piercing gaze. Cargo run gone wrong. Raiders took out my ship. I was lucky Zephyra found me when she did. Lucky indeed. Vex's attention returned to Zephyra, and Marcus caught something possessive and dangerous in his expression. Though I wonder why you felt the need to hide this charitable act from your clan. Your communication systems have been deliberately blocked. I value my privacy, Zephyr replied. Privacy. Vex's laugh was like breaking glass. Yes, you always did prefer solitude to the company of your own kind. Perhaps that's why you found it so easy to abandon your responsibilities. Kestra stepped forward, her young face set with determination. Vex, with respect, my sister has fulfilled her obligations to the clan. She served honorably as a warrior and healer. Her choice to refuse bonding was her right under ancient law. Ancient law that has kept our people strong for millennia, Vex countered. Law that recognizes the importance of genetic compatibility and clan alliances. Law that your sister has chosen to ignore in favor of, what? Hiding on a dead moon, playing nursemaid to alien refugees? The contempt in his voice when he said alien made Marcus's jaw clench. He opened his mouth to respond, but Zephyr's sharp look silenced him. My choices are my own, Zephyr said firmly. And they harm no one. Don't they? Vex moved closer to her, his massive frame towering even over her considerable height. Your father grows older each cycle. The clan needs strong alliances, and our bonding would have secured treaties with 3 neighboring settlements. Your selfishness has consequences beyond your own life, Zephyr. Marcus watched the exchange with growing anger. He could see the way Zephyr's shoulders tensed, the way her crystalline formations dimmed under the weight of guilt and obligation. This was emotional manipulation disguised as duty, and every instinct he possessed screamed at him to intervene. The clan survived before I was born, Zephyr replied. They'll survive without my cooperation in their political games. Will they? Vex's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. And what of your precious human? Has he told you why he was really in this sector? Marcus felt ice form in his veins. What are you talking about? Vex smiled, and it was a predator's expression. I took the liberty of researching your background, Marcus Reed. Interesting reading. Mercenary pilot, wanted by the Terran Colonial Authority for smuggling operations. That medical cargo you mentioned? It was stolen from a research facility on Kepler Station. The accusation hit Marcus like a physical blow. Kestra gasped, and he could see doubt creeping back into Zephyr's eyes. That's not, the cargo was legitimate. I had proper documentation. Forged documentation, Vex continued relentlessly. Created by the same criminal network that's been trafficking illegal bioweapons through this sector. You're not a victim, Marcus Reed. You're a criminal who got caught. Even if that were true, Zephyr said quietly, it doesn't change the fact that he was dying when I found him. My healer's oath required me to help. Your healer's oath, Vex repeated. Yes, let's discuss that. Tell me, Zephyr, have you maintained proper boundaries with your patient? Or has your charitable nature extended beyond medical care? The question hung in the air like a charged blade. Marcus could see Zephyr struggling with the implications, with the choice between truth and safety. In that moment, he realized that whatever they had shared, real or manufactured, wasn't worth destroying her life. She's been nothing but professional, Marcus said firmly. Medical treatment, basic hospitality, nothing more. Any suggestions otherwise are insulting to her character. But Vex was studying them both with the calculating gaze of someone who had spent years reading people's secrets. How noble. And yet. He moved to the medical bay, running his scanner over the bioresonance equipment. These readings show extended healing sessions, far beyond what would be necessary for your injuries. Curious. Marcus felt his heart sink as Vex's scanner revealed the depth of the healing treatments, the intimate bioresonance connections that had been necessary to save his life. To someone looking for evidence of impropriety, the data would be damning. Extended healing was necessary due to the severity of his injuries, Zephyr said, but her voice lacked conviction. Was it? Vex's smile was triumphant. Or was it something else entirely? You see, I know you, Zephyr. I know the way your crystalline formations glow when you're emotionally compromised. The way they're glowing right now. Indeed, the formations on Zephyr's shoulders were pulsing with soft light, betraying the emotional turmoil she was trying to hide. Marcus cursed the alien biology that made her feelings so transparent. "Your point?" Zephyra asked tersely. "My point is that you've compromised yourself with this human. Whether through bioresonance feedback or simple loneliness, you've formed an attachment that clouds your judgment. An attachment that makes you unfit to make rational decisions about your future." "That's not true," Marcus protested, but even as he spoke, he wondered if it was. The doubts Kestra had planted were growing, fed by Vex's accusations and the evidence of their extended healing sessions. "Isn't it?" Vex turned to him directly. "Tell me, human, what do you feel when you look at her?" The question was a trap, but Marcus found himself answering honestly. "I feel connected. Like I've found something I didn't know I was looking for." "Bioresonance echo," Vex said dismissively. "A well-documented side effect of extended nexury healing treatments. What you're experiencing isn't love, it's neural feedback. Give it another few days, and the feeling will fade." Marcus looked at Zephyra, seeing his own doubts reflected in her eyes. Was Vex right? Was everything he'd felt just alien medicine playing tricks with his brain chemistry? "There's a simple way to settle this," Vex continued. "If what you feel is real, if it's more than just medical side effects, then you won't object to proving it." "What kind of proof?" Kestra asked suspiciously. Vex's smile was cold and calculating. "Trial by bonding. If this human truly loves my intended mate, if she truly chooses him over her duty to her people, then let him undergo the bonding ceremony. Let him prove his worthiness by surviving the neural integration that creates a true nexury pair bond." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus could see the horror in Kestra's eyes, the conflict tearing at Zephyra's heart. He didn't fully understand what Vex was proposing, but the younger Nexury's reaction told him everything he needed to know about the dangers involved. "Absolutely not," Zephyra said, her voice sharp with fear. "The bonding ceremony with a human would be fatal. The neural pathways are completely incompatible." "Are they?" Vex challenged. "Your bioresonance readings suggest otherwise. If the healing process truly created a connection between you, then perhaps your human is more compatible than conventional wisdom suggests." "And if he's not?" Kestra demanded. "If the bonding kills him? Then we'll know the truth," Vex replied coldly. "That what they shared was nothing more than medical fantasy. And Zephyra will return to fulfill her proper duties." Marcus felt the weight of the choice settling on his shoulders like lead. If he refused, he would be admitting that his feelings weren't real, or that he wasn't willing to risk everything for them. If he accepted, he might die in the attempt to prove something that could indeed be nothing more than alien medical technology playing tricks with his emotions. But looking at Zephyra, seeing the fear and hope warring in her liquid starlight eyes, Marcus realized the choice had already been made. Whether what they shared was real or manufactured, whether it would last or fade, it had changed them both. And some changes were worth dying for. "I'll do it," he said quietly. "Marcus, no," Zephyra breathed. "You don't understand what you're agreeing to." "I understand enough," he replied, meeting her gaze. "I understand that if I don't try, we'll never know if what we have is real. And I'd rather die finding out than live with the doubt." Vex's expression was unreadable. "Very well. But the ceremony must be overseen by a neutral party. Someone qualified to ensure proper protocols are followed." "Elder Thane," Kestra suggested. "He's been studying interspecies neural compatibility for decades. If anyone could safely oversee such a ceremony, it would be him." "Agreed," Vex said. "I'll send word immediately. He can be here within 2 days." As the implications of what they'd agreed to settled over them, Marcus caught Zephyra's hand in his. Her skin was warm, and he could feel that familiar vibration, like a tuning fork struck in harmony. Real or not, it was all they had. 2 days, he said softly. 2 days, she echoed, her voice barely a whisper. Outside, the twin suns climbed higher into the crimson sky, marking the beginning of what might be the last 48 hours of Marcus Reed's life. But as he looked into Zephyr's eyes, he found he wasn't afraid. Whatever happened, whatever the ceremony revealed about the nature of their connection, he would face it beside the woman who had saved his life and stolen his heart. The only question now was whether love, real or imagined, would be enough to survive the trial that awaited them.